Remote reality, yeah, that's the key. Unlocking stories wild and free. With the hosts side by side. Channel surfers, let's ride.
Welcome to Remote Reality. This is Lauren, and this is probably the 15th time I have tried to record this episode. Today we are going to cover the Dateline NBC season 33, episode 29, Sean Combs on trial. This was from 2 weeks ago before the Sean Combs trial started. And at the end, we're going to talk a little bit about the first couple of weeks in trial. The trial isn't being shown on court TV, so I'm having to get information from other news sources. I wish that I could watch it. This trial does involve serious allegations, so listener discretion is advised. This trial covers sex trafficking allegations, domestic abuse, so it is a sensitive nature. Before we get into anything too serious, though, let's talk about the first 15 times I tried to record this. Yesterday, Liz and I had the best intentions because I promised I would get it out to you by the end of the week. It was my son's last day of school, and I had a work to do, and she had work until 1 o'clock and promised her daughter they would go to the pool. So I said, this is what we'll do. I'll bring my son to your house. We'll go swimming. My husband can come pick him up. We can grab dinner, and then you and I can record. Awesome. We got a plan. Then we decided to take this ottoman I brought. We go put that in her living room, and it looks great. But then my ADHD hyperfocus kicks in, and I'm thinking, let's redecorate your house. And I just drag Liz right along with me. Her ADHD hyperfocus kicks in. For the next couple of hours, Liz and I are moving stuff around. My husband comes, and they're like, we're hungry. So Liz's boyfriend, Austin, my husband, Rob, my son, Liz and I would go out for dinner, and then we're going to record. Well, my husband orders a pitcher of margaritas. So, of course, I had to have a little bit. We go back to Liz's house with Austin to sit down, watch the Dateline. Again, we have our recording equipment set up. We've got our headphones in place. Austin hasn't seen our recording equipment yet. And I said, hey, Austin, check this out. And I hand him the headphones. And then Liz starts pressing the buttons that change our voices. And Austin and I just get into this mode where we are being so goofy. We're all laughing. And then we give Liz the headphones. So she's producing this. We're just talking to each other and we're being completely weirdos. We don't know what voices are being used. And Liz and her daughter are just laughing so hard. We have no idea what it's going to sound like, but you guys can have an idea of what it sounds like because we did record some of it. And at the end of this episode, I'll play a little clip of it. But yeah, that took up our whole day. I got home around 1 o'clock in the morning. So we did not get it recorded. So that was Thursday. And Liz had to work today. Today, I start recording and my mind just isn't working. I'm like, why can't I get a sentence out? And then my insulin pump starts beeping at me. So I'm type 1 diabetic. I've been type 1 diabetic since I was 10 years old. I have a monitor that monitors my blood sugar and it lets me know if something's going on. So it was telling me I was getting low, which kind of puts me in like a brain fog, little tipsy kind of state. So I thought, okay, I'll just keep recording. Let's show the channel surfers what this is like. I had some juicy juice. It was the natural flavor of fruit punch. I love when that's fresh picked right off a tree. Then I wait for 15 minutes. And if the blood sugar goes up, we're good. If it doesn't or it goes down more, then rinse and repeat. Another juice, another 15 minutes. I thought, okay, I'll just record. I was probably getting close to the first 15 minutes when I kicked my computer cord out of the wall, which is fine because I was a rambling mess. There's some awesome TikToks made by type 1 diabetics where they show what it's like. When I have low, sometimes I'll watch them because it's hard to wait out that 15 minutes. It's soothing to see someone else shaking and not feeling great for 15 minutes and like, is that juice going to work or are we going to have to throw some more on there? But as I'm restarting my computer, the whole 45 minutes that takes, I'm thinking, I would have to edit that for it to even make sense. And that's not going to show what it's like. So before it even opened up, I had already decided I wouldn't be able to use that. So yeah, that's the comedy of errors. Liz and I hadn't seen each other in a while, got off track, low blood sugar, and then kicking my computer cord out of the wall. But here we are. 15th time is a lucky charm. So Dateline, season 33, episode 29, Sean Combs on trial. One thing I always think about is that you're innocent until proven guilty. Sometimes that's really hard. And this is a great example. With Sean Combs, we're going to see video of him physically assaulting a girlfriend. And it's horrendous and it's wrong and it turns my stomach. And if he was charged with domestic violence or assault and battery, those cases would be a slam dunk. But what we're looking at in this trial are charges of sex trafficking, conspiracy, and RICO violations, the Racketeering Act, when you use a criminal enterprise to engage in illegal activity. The prosecution is trying to use the abuse to show how they're forcing people into criminal activity. So when we look at this evidence, even though it's very hard to look at, we have to look at it for what it's being submitted for, which is trying to prove coercion by force. And that's something to keep in mind. I think the defense will remind the jury, this guy's not a good guy. He's accomplished great things musically, but he also has this horrible side where he is abusing people. The question before us is, did he engage in sex trafficking, criminal conspiracy, and Racketeering Act violations? And it's hard. I know that guy belongs in jail. Absolutely. But does that prove what they're charging him with, which is not assault and battery, and it's not domestic violence? It's really a complex case, except for conspiracy. I've never represented anybody on sex trafficking or RICO violations, so I've never even dealt with these elements before, but let's dive into this. So the episode starts out with security cam footage of Sean Combs physically attacking his girlfriend, Cassie Ventura. It looks like he's grabbing her hair. He pulls her down and she just flies back onto the floor. And then he starts kicking her and dragging her out of the hallway. Horrible. And then you see him throwing things in the hallway in the hotel. Cassie Ventura ended up suing Sean Combs in civil court, and that settled. From what I understand, the criminal complaint in this case was modeled after her civil complaint. They show his indictment and they name all of his aliases on it. On his indictment, it says Sean Combs, a.k.a. Puff Daddy, a.k.a. P. Diddy. Sean Combs grew up in Harlem, and we learned that his father was killed when he was young, so his mother moved them out of Harlem, and he went to Catholic school. And he was an altar boy. We have that in common. I was an altar server in Catholic school. It's wild. Sorry, sidetrack. I'm in 4th grade. We have Mass on Fridays, and afterwards, if there's any blood of Christ, wine, left over in the cup, you can't dump it down the sink. You have to drink it, rinse it out with holy water, and then drink the holy water. What does that mean? That means that Friday mornings in 4th grade, I was pretty much drinking a glass of wine before class. Because during the student mass, nobody was really drinking the wine. Yeah, good times. Wish it was Merlot or Pinot Noir, but no, it's Mancheva, just really sweet wine. I digress. So he went to Catholic school and he was an altar boy and he probably got to have a little sippy sip before class too. My Catholic parents will be very disappointed that I'm not saying that this is Jesus's blood. I'm sorry. Sorry to disappoint mom and dad. And then we learned how he got his name Puffy. So when he was little, he would get really mad and huff and puff, and they called him Puffy, which is kind of cute, but also, maybe he was struggling. I wonder if they did anything for his anger besides just nickname him Puffy. Maybe things would be different. At 22 years old, he was working with Mary J. Blige, Amazing. Sean Combs made his own recording label, Bad Boy Records, and he was a great music producer. He worked with Biggie Smalls, the Notorious B.I.G. Then we go to where Biggie was murdered, and Sean took that as his own personal cross to bear. If you've ever heard the song, I'll Be Missing You, that was written for Biggie. And that really is a heartfelt song. It will remind you of those friends that you've lost when you hear it. I cry when I listen to it still 30 some years later. Has it been that long? Let me see. 97, 2007, 2017. It's been 28 years. I was close. Oh my gosh. Wow. That song is what kicked off Sean's own musical celebrity, not as a producer, but as a performer. They played that everywhere. We meet Philip Block, celebrity stylist. I really like him. He went to Sean Combs' white parties. He's saying these parties were great. They were for Diddy to show his power and his influence. They were in the Hamptons. These were not inexpensive parties. We see pictures, people on floats, in pools, white furniture. And we go from white parties to Sean Combs' relationship with J-Lo. The celebrity stylist is super excited at this point. He loves some J-Lo. I love some J-Lo. It's showing a picture of her in this green dress, huge V-neck. I remember that dress. It's on a lot of magazines. J-Lo is very stylish, but I do not remember Sean being with her. I just remember her in the dress. So then Josh Mankiewicz tells us in 1997, Sean and two of his friends stormed into Steve Stout's office and they attacked him because there was a small dispute about a music video. They were punching him, beating him, hitting him in the head with a champagne bottle. It seems very cartoonish. It's very violent. On TV, they make that out of sugar. They're not really hitting people with glass. That's the edit. Not a good idea. Don't hit people. Don't hit them in the head with glass. But his arrest for this was felony assault. That seems like the right charge. Absolutely. And in addition to the criminal charge, he was also sued by Steve Stout in a civil case. And then all of a sudden, you see Sean Combs and Steve Stout smiling, standing together. And we're told they ended up making peace. And they settled the lawsuit in civil court. Steve Stout would have to prove a lower burden of proof than the criminal, the felony assault. So in the civil case, Steve Stout would have to show that more likely than not, Sean Combs hit him in an offensive way. If you're looking at the scales of justice and a feather drops down and just slightly pushes one just ever so slightly up, and that's in the direction of Steve Stout, that's all you need for the civil case. It's a lower burden. In a criminal case, totally different burden of proof. If you're going to take away someone's life and freedom, you have to prove their guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. So if you're looking at those scales of justice, tilt them. One's almost hitting the ground. It's the highest burden of proof you have in law. I wonder if maybe the prosecutors for the criminal allegations ended up letting him take a lesser plea because the civil suit settled, and they were thinking, well, maybe it settled because they couldn't prove it. We still have to prove it at a much higher standard. We have to do beyond a reasonable doubt. So if they settled this, maybe we should try to wrap it up too. Now, also, a lot of criminal cases do settle. Most cases settle and don't go to trial. We go to 1999 and we meet Natanya Rubin. She's a beautiful lady, was a singer, a performer, and we're told she recently changed her party lifestyle and was getting more into the church scene. But one of her friends was like, hey, you want to go to this club? And she was like, yeah, let's do it. Jesus doesn't care if you go to a club. You just love everybody. Just show some love in the club. So she gets shot in the face during a club altercation that involves Diddy. And she says that her high heels that she switched out for her flats that night are what saved her life. Because if she was shorter when she was hit, it would have killed her. It would have turned out differently. And that's like the opposite of what I would ever think I'd be able to say. Heels would definitely be the death of me. But this is a special circumstance. I would fall, though, before I got to the club. Now, Natasha says, as God is her witness, she saw Sean Combs reach for a gun and pull it out before she was shot. And she describes being shot in the face as being hit with a flaming hot sledgehammer. I can't imagine. And I'm sure there was some level of shock involved in that too. But wow. Y'all, I really like Natasha. She's telling us how her mom went into her hospital room and kicked her butt, was like, you are not going to die. You're going to get your butt up. You're going to survive. Yes, mama. Okay. She is so cute. And her mom, I love that sassy mama. So she did recover from the gunshot, but it left her with a seizure disorder and a traumatic brain injury. So it really changed the course of her life in some ways. It's going to make it harder. It's going to mean there's more doctor's appointments. There's insurance required. There's more steps you have to take. So Sean Combs' charges in this case, they didn't allege he was the shooter. She knows that he was one of the ones that fired a gun. She saw him reach, at least. I would think with bullets, if they had the bullet shell, they could probably prove what gun it came from. So maybe that's it. Maybe they proved that it came from the other person's gun and that he just drew his out. I don't know. I don't know about that case. First I've heard of it. But Sean Combs was found not guilty of possessing an unregistered firearm. And Natasha feels like that's because she didn't have celebrity and he did. Celebrity does inherently come with power as well as money. Sean Combs was a billionaire and she really felt like that influenced the jury. I don't know though. I don't know who the jury was. Let me give you an example. I wonder if it's because he was in the car and the gun was in the car. So they charged him with possession because it was within his domain. It was in the car where he had access to it. So everybody could be charged with possession. My trial advocacy teacher in law school, he had a great example of a case he tried with a similar issue. Some people were pulled over. There were drugs in the car and everyone in that car got charged with possession. So what he did, because if it's in your domain, if you're able to grab it, that was enough to be possession. So what he did was during one of the recesses, my trial advocacy teacher, who was the defense attorney, it was a cocaine charge. He went and he taped a bag of white powder under the prosecution's table. And then during closing arguments, he walked up there and grabbed the white bag from under their table where it was taped and said, see, they didn't even know they've been in possession of this white bag since I put it there during our last recess. Powerful. I'm wondering if that's how he got off. If it's on you, obviously that's in your possession. It's a little bit murkier though. When it's in a car, everybody in the car could catch that charge. So no doubt power and celebrity is powerful, but also the state may not have had a strong case. But we do find out that Shine, the rapper that was with Sean Combs, went to jail. I wonder if he was the shooter or maybe they were able to prove that. It doesn't say what he went to jail for. That's just my theory. I guess I could look it up. Did Shine go to jail for it in 1999? In 1999, Shine was convicted and sentenced to 10 years for his role in a nightclub shooting. He was found guilty of assault, reckless abandonment, and criminal possession of a weapon. Assault. So he was likely the shooter there. I don't know, but that would make sense with the assault charge. So Sean Combs and J-Lo didn't work out. They didn't make it past the shooting trial. After that, he kind of had a play of reputation. He had children by multiple women. His white parties, they got freaky. But then we meet Cassie Ventura. I didn't realize she sings that song, Me and You, from back when I was in college. I liked that song. Cassie's friend said Sean Combs was controlling toward Cassie professionally because she was on his label, as well as personally. And we see the personal part. And we're shown clips of Sean with Cassie. Of course, this is what the public sees. She's gorgeous. She is beautiful. She's a fashion icon. And she's with this billionaire who is also a singer. He's in the same profession. when you're looking at it through the press, it looks great because you don't know what happens behind closed doors. But I also wanted to take that moment to say how absolutely stunning Cassie Ventura is. Cassie's friend tells us about Cassie's 29th birthday. Went through her a surprise birthday party. And afterwards, the girls go to the club. They're out. They didn't go with Sean. And Sean and his security team just come up in this place. Sean's got Cassie in a corner with his fingers in her face, yelling at her. And the security's walking around him, like staring her down. What the heck? That is so. And she said that when they walked into the room, it felt like all the air got sucked out. So yeah, there was that tension. Probably the same tension that they felt when they had the FaceTime call. This just seemed, he's an abuser. It's definitely an abuser. So after Sean and his bad boy, let's gang up on a woman security detail, get up in Cassie's face and pull her out of the karaoke club, they go disappear somewhere. Cassie's friend goes back to Cassie's. She's staying the night. She's wondering where everybody is. And then she says Sean comes in with Cassie and Cassie's out of it. Sean is belligerent, but Cassie's just tranquilized. And he's mad because she won't have sex with him. He's saying, I flew all this way from Miami. And he's just throwing a fit because she won't sleep with him. So yeah, that is not consent. So Cassie and Sean break up in 2018. And Cassie stays relatively quiet about this. She doesn't go to the press. She doesn't say anything. And after a while, Sean starts trying to woo her back on social media. He's making posts about her. He's tagging her in throwback pictures. In 2022, Sean Combs got the Lifetime Achievement Award for BET. And in his acceptance speech, he thanks Cassie for holding him down during the bad times. So it's been 4 years and he's still thinking about Cassie. But Cassie, don't listen to this. Run. We know she did. She got away. She's married now. She's pregnant, testifying pregnant. Things have turned away from Sean Combs. I don't care how much you thank me. If you dragged me out of a hotel by my hair, I wouldn't give you the chance to thank me either. It sounds like that's what Cassie did. She wasn't responding to him on social media. She stayed out of the spotlight. She's just like, I'm going to pretend you don't exist. And that's going to be my reality. And it worked for her. And her friend Tiffany, the one that she was with the night she got drug out on her 29th birthday, they hadn't talked about that at all. But eventually she did tell Tiffany everything that had happened. She let it out. And not long after, in 2023, she told the world. That's when she brought those civil charges against Sean. Good for her. In the civil trial, Cassie alleged that Sean raped her, sex trafficked her, physically abused her, and then he would use his wealth and network to bring her back. Personally, I've never seen this, but in this civil complaint, the allegations are so graphic that they put a trigger warning at the top. I've never seen a case like that. I've never seen that on a pleading, a trigger warning. I really wonder what these jurors are saying. I think we're probably all lucky we don't know. But in the civil complaint, she claimed that he was using drugs and illegal substances. She would beat her. He had total control over her. Cassie says that during freak-offs, she was forced to have sex with other men for Diddy's enjoyment. And these happened on a regular basis. Sometimes it was weekly. One of them went on for days. And Sean Combs would keep records of this. He would videotape these encounters, which definitely could be used for coercion. And Sean Combs' response to the lawsuit is, look, she's just in it for money. I don't think so. During this time, he had gone off on this whole Love era. His middle name is Love. He has a kid named Love. It's all about the love with Sean Combs. And she was probably just sickened by this BS. She knew what it was like to be with him for a decade. And it wasn't this all good, lovey-lovey feeling. It was traumatic. I think it was about letting the world know who this person is. The lawsuit was settled at lightning pace within 24 hours. We don't know how much. The amount was undisclosed, but that's really fast. You file this huge lawsuit, the trigger warning on it, and within 24 hours, you've got a settlement. That is efficient. maybe settling it that fast signaled that it's a strong case. It's definitely more likely than not they're going to win a bunch of money if we don't settle this in 24 hours. I mean, that's wild. Jasmine Canick says that the reason the lawsuit settled is because there were things that Diddy didn't want coming out into the public, which is an interesting theory. They didn't mention a gag order being part of the settlement agreement or that the records were sealed. So she doesn't specify why she thinks part of the settlement was to keep things from coming out, because they did come out. What came out of that trial was that horrific hotel security footage of him dragging Cassie out of the hallway by her hair. That could definitely be a motive to settle. As an attorney, though, you'd want that in your settlement so it doesn't get out. And so there are repercussions, there are fines or something if it does get out. You'd be in contempt of the order, and it got out. So I don't know if that was really part of the motivation to settle. Maybe it was the strong case. We see fashion icon Philip talking about the video. He has tears in his eyes. This person that he admired. It is a very hard video to watch. It's really affecting him as somebody that was friends with Sean Combs. There was definitely a side he did not know, that the world didn't know until this video came out, thanks to Cassie's lawsuit. Now, 2 days after the video is released, Sean, who said that Cassie was just out for the cash, all of a sudden he's up on Instagram giving an Instagram apology, saying, "I'm so sorry. That was bad." Dude, that should have been said a long time ago. This isn't about apologizing. He's just sorry that people saw his other side. I can't with him. After Cassie's lawsuit, other victims were brave enough to come out with their allegations. Many lawsuits were filed that were describing the victims being drugged and sexually assaulted. And one woman said that he dangled her from a balcony 17 stories up. That is terrifying. And these allegations haven't just been from women. They've also come from men. My jaw was on the floor when the male employee that worked for Bad Boy Records anonymously came forward with his story. He would have had firsthand knowledge of it. This is what happened to him. He was the victim. He had done work for Diddy that wasn't recorded. I don't know what that was, but he was still owed money after he left Bad Boy Records. So they scheduled a meeting about the money that was owed. And Sean said, "Let's have some drinks." Allegedly, they started having some drinks, and then he started feeling sleepy, and he woke up being raped, with Sean saying, "Hold on, I'm almost finished, don't move." He has no boundaries with anybody, but this is another power imbalance. This is an employee. Cassie was a artist under his label. Horrible. I believe his victims, and I feel really bad for what they went through. He deserves jail time. He's saying that nobody should believe these people because they're anonymous. Given the nature of these allegations, though, it's not these victims' faults at all. They shouldn't feel any shame. The only person who should feel shame or guilt 100% is Sean Combs. But they don't want to be public. They don't want people to know them for that. Think about Monica Lewinsky. One thing she did when she was 26 years old, we still remember her by decades later. And I can get not wanting this trauma to constantly follow you around. I get the being anonymous. We actually get to see the security camera footage of another hotel. This one's a little more fun, though. It's Sean Combs getting arrested on these charges. I just wish that would have happened in the middle of the last one, but 10 years later, it's time. So yeah, this Dateline episode, they say that Cassie's civil complaint, it served as a roadmap for this criminal case. The prosecution used it to make their indictments. Paul Butler, a former federal prosecutor turned law professor, explains criminal enterprise. The way Paul is describing a criminal enterprise, he's saying it's a bunch of people who existed to fill Sean Combs' desires. even his criminal desires. So for a criminal enterprise, though, what they're going to have to show is that these people existed to help him commit crimes. Why are we on these charges? While he should be in jail for everything he's done, how is the state going to prove a criminal enterprise? That's one of my concerns. He should be in jail, but how do you prove that? We find out that Combs was denied bail. He offered to put collateral down. That means he offered to put property down. And if he didn't show up to court, then they would take his property. But they denied him bail. In a bail hearing, you're looking at if somebody is a danger to the community or if they're a flight risk. So with somebody who has $1 billion, that could be a flight risk. And with a celebrity that has power and connections, they might worry that he could leave the country even if he surrendered his passport. That's one of the things you can do in a bond hearing. If you have somebody and you're like, okay, you don't want them to travel, we will surrender their passport for the bond. But most people don't have the ability to get a private jet and connections all across the world. Flight risk may have been a concern. I could see why that was denied. You're going to put your house down as collateral and then leave the country and never come back. Why would you care if they took it if you put it up as collateral? So definitely a flight risk. As far as danger to the community, he was messaging witnesses. So the state said to protect our case, he can't be out here. We don't need people going missing before trial. We don't need him buddying up with Steve and all of a sudden Steve's not going to testify against him. And that was also a huge decision, I'm sure, in the court denying the bail, is that he's already trying to mess with the state's case. He's already messaging witnesses. We think he's trying to mess with the state's case. They don't say what the messages were. We can imagine what they are. And I'm sure that the court would see those messages. Dateline sums up what the defense is going to say, which is, yeah, he's a horrible guy. I wouldn't want him to date my kid, but this isn't sex trafficking. This isn't a criminal enterprise. This was consensual. He was a swinger. And that part always makes me stop to think. It's consensual. How is that different if he had a great relationship with Cassie and that they were both swingers and she wanted the freak off? She requested the freak offs. How would that be different? Besides the abuse, very obviously there's abuse, but this isn't an abuse case. They're saying that he was coercing her and forcing her with his power. So if she's saying, yeah, I like that he's wealthy, I like that he's famous, I'm willing to be a little more, I'll have a little fun for him since he's all of those things and I like being in his space and his realm. And let's say that there was no physical abuse. Would anything be consensual? Can you ever? And I think that's where I keep just kind of winding around. Can you ever have consent if there's a power imbalance? Now, I know as attorneys, we have a code of ethics. You don't date clients. There's a power imbalance. You see this at other places of work. You don't date your superiors, not even your coworkers sometimes. That's not a power imbalance. That's more of like, we don't want to shit where we eat. But that's the part that I struggle with. Can it ever be consensual if somebody is attracted to him for his wealth and for his celebrity, which will draw certain people in? It's just me overthinking. But yeah, that's the part I keep pausing on. One of the things that the defense will say is that CNN altered the hotel video of him and Cassie, that it was sped up, so it looked way worse than it was. I don't care if that's sped up or slowed down. If you slowly grab somebody by their hair and pull them over and slowly kick them and slowly take their bags from them and slowly drag them by their hair down the hall, it's still the same. It still looks horrible. It's not worse. It's just the same. And the defense, which I know they're going to have to do, they are going to admit there was domestic violence in the relationship. My client's not a good guy at all. He's horrible. He is a domestic abuser. Now, they say that the defense is going to say it was mutual. Yeah. Sean Combs is a celebrity worth $1 billion. He could ruin her career. He has a bigger body frame than her. Is Cassie really a threat to him in any way? I'm not saying that men can't be domestically abused. And sometimes in abusive relationships, there's a reactive abuse. She could have abused him. It could have been reactive. Yeah, this defense, it feels gross, but that's because this is a gross person. Got to get back to that innocence. Is he guilty of sex trafficking and conspiracy and RICO? All right, I got to be a robot because I'm starting to get all of my feelings about this. I'm not a good client to have. You got a bad client. They're being charged with bad things. Yeah. So the hotel security video of Sean Combs and Cassie, of him attacking Cassie, that is going to be used to show coercion in the sex trafficking, to show that that's how he forced her to engage in sexual acts against her will for profit. For the racketeering, they're kind of try to say that his staff tried to pay hotel personnel for this video, presumably to hide their criminal enterprise. This video absolutely shows assault, battery, domestic violence. Absolutely. I wonder if it has to be the crime that is being charged, though, because he's never been charged with assault or battery or domestic violence. He's being charged only with sex trafficking. Given innocence until proven guilty, they couldn't say, oh, well, he's obviously guilty of domestic violence. He wasn't even charged with that. He's innocent until you prove him guilty or he pleads. So does that video show sex trafficking and he was using a criminal enterprise to cover it up by buying the video? Do they shoot themselves in the foot for not having charged him with assault and battery or domestic violence? I wonder why they didn't. I wonder if there was a statute of limitations issue because that video was in 2016. It might have been too late to bring charges. I'll have to look at that because he's horrible. These charges are horrible. They seem like a stretch. Why not charge with rape? I've got questions. Obviously, this person, not a good person. My questions are these the right charges? And why these charges? Or is it because of, well, I don't know. Is it because of the consequences? If he's found guilty on all of this, he could be sentenced to life. Would they argue that domestic violence is a lesser included offense of the sex trafficking? I mean, it's not, I don't know. The Dateline episode closes with one of the people saying, justice looks like Diddy behind bars. And I agree. But does it look like Diddy behind bars for what he's charged with? That's why it's so important to bring the right charges. And even though he belongs behind bars, if the state can't prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt, then he shouldn't go to jail for those charges. He should be in jail, but should he be in jail for RICO violations, conspiracy, and sex trafficking? Josh Mankiewicz goes on to say he might beat these charges. He's gotten off before. Money buys you a lot, which is true. Buys you the ability to have competent counsel that have lots of time to focus on your case and to hire lots of experts for your case and to hire lots of staff to be on your case looking at every single detail. But at the end of the day, the state needs to prove the case beyond a reasonable doubt. Before we jump into the trial, just to kind of go back, I've been questioning why these charges. I was wondering why Sean Combs wasn't charged with rape or assault and battery. Well, the hotel video that shows the domestic violence or the assault and battery, that was at Intercontinental Hotel in Century City, Los Angeles, California. So for assault and domestic violence, we would look at California's law where the alleged crime occurred, and the charges would have to be brought under a statute of limitations within 5 years from the incident. The incident was in 2016, so they couldn't bring those. Why didn't they charge him with rape? California doesn't have a statute of limitations on rape. However, these are federal charges. These were brought in New York in a district federal court, in the U.S. courts, not the state courts. In federal rape cases, they have a 5-year statute of limitations from the date of the offense. Still, though, why wouldn't California charge rape? We have video of her being coerced into sex trafficking at that hotel, and that's what we're seeing. That's proof of the sex trafficking, and that there was sex without consent. Why not go for rape in California? Can the state prove that? And does that hurt proving their case beyond a reasonable doubt? If California doesn't feel like they have a very low standard, probable cause, just some evidence that it happened to arrest, then how is the federal prosecutor going to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that that's evidence of coerced sex trafficking? Could be a problem for the prosecution. Now, there are definitely problems for the defense. Some of the biggest problems for the defense are just the unsavory character of Sean Combs, what we're seeing, how abusive he is. And maybe California is waiting. Maybe they would bring rape charges if he's not convicted of sex trafficking and RICO and conspiracy in federal court. Maybe California brings the rape charges later. Serving time in state court, definitely not as good as if you get to stay in Club Fed, which is one of the issues, if you remember, from Alec Murdaugh. If anyone watched that case, he was definitely trying to get into the Fed prison, not the state prison. Yeah. At the end of this episode, I am convinced he has a bad side of it, but I'm questioning why these charges and whether or not they're going to prove them beyond a reasonable doubt, whether or not Sean Combs is guilty of sex trafficking, racketeering, and conspiracy. Just those 3 things. That's all this case is looking at. Do they have proof beyond a reasonable doubt of those 3 charges? And that's one thing with this episode. I've listened to it a bunch of times, watched it a bunch of times. I just keep having trouble wrapping my brain around it because these charges, they seem very strange for the allegation. But we'll see. So we're in trial now. We're in week 2. So in week 1, Cassie Ventura testified, and she is 8.5 months pregnant. Her pregnancy has become a point of contention. The defense has argued that her pregnancy makes her more sympathetic to jurors, and it gives a prejudicial quality to her testimony. So in the rules of evidence, you don't want testimony to be more prejudicial than probative. He's setting the record for appeal. I don't know if I agree with that. There is kind of a gross Madonna undertone to that argument. So I don't know. Obviously, the judge let her in, let her walk in front of the jury. They didn't want the jury to see she was pregnant. I don't think that's the problem here, defense. The problem here is that your dude man is dragging her through the halls of a hotel 10 years ago, and it doesn't look good. That's prejudicial, but it's also part of the case, so you can't keep it out. Haha. Now, the judge could give further instruction on how to use that evidence. So she's about to have a baby. There has been talk about whether this state is putting her up now before she has the baby to get that sympathy, or if it's because she might have a baby and not be available to testify if we wait too long. You don't know what's going to happen during childbirth. Hopefully everything goes very smoothly for Cassie, but you don't know. I don't feel sympathy that she's pregnant. It doesn't affect the way I trust her testimony. It doesn't make her more credible to me. I didn't even make it to 8.5 months with my pregnancy, and the end was miserable. I understand you've got to be uncomfortable. It's not sympathy. It's just, I don't know if I could do that. That's hard. It's hard enough just being pregnant at that point. It's more amazement that she's able to do it. I feel bad that she's a victim. I feel bad for what this man put her through. I feel sympathy for that. But it has nothing to do with her pregnancy. It has to do with what we've seen him do, if that's what we're seeing. But yeah, so it looks like the judge didn't buy it either, because he let her walk in front of the jury multiple times, but they're preserving that for appeal. They're going to try to pull this Machiavellian argument on appeal. Yeah, I'm not buying it. Cassie testified about her relationship with Sean. It took out a big chunk of her life. It was 11 years. And as far as the freak offs, they made her feel disgusting and humiliated. They made her nervous. They made her confused. Some of that also could be that the drugs that were happening, similar symptoms. But she's saying that he controlled her to where she was doing this because she didn't feel like she had a choice. She continued to participate because he threatened physical violence, and she was worried that he might use the videos against her. And just like at her 29th birthday party, part of her testimony was how he would have his security take her phone or take her computer as a form of punishment, which taking somebody's phone, there are some states where that is criminal to take someone's phone so they can't call for help. Probably beyond the statute of limitations on that. Completely wrong, but is that sex trafficking? And then the defense isn't saying that he wasn't violent. They acknowledged he was violent. They don't have anything to lose on that. They can't charge him with assault or domestic violence. It's beyond the statute of limitations. And they're also suggesting that his actions were fueled on by drug use and jealousy. Those are both your decisions. If you have jealousy problems, they're encouraging you to act this way and you haven't worked it out, that's your problem. If you're choosing to take drugs and you know that they make you violent and they cause you to harm others, you're choosing the drugs, you're choosing the consequences. The jealousy, you need to get in therapy and work on your issues. You can't just beat people up because you have trouble controlling your emotions. We would not have a civilized society if that's how things work. And during her testimony, they did review the 2016 surveillance video of the hotel security camera. Ventura was asked how many times in their relationship did he throw you down, like he did in that video, and she said too many to count. The defense brought up with Ventura, they did find some text, and they said that these show that the freak-offs were consensual, such as there was a text that said, "I miss you so much, I'd fly wherever you need me, whenever." That just says, okay, yeah, I'll fly wherever you want to take me. It doesn't mean a freak-off is consensual. It just means, yeah, I'll get on your private jet. Let's go. There's another text that says, "I'm always ready to freak off, LOLOL." And that was in 2009. Yeah, that one maybe not look. That one maybe doesn't look so great. In another 2009 message, she texted Sean and said, "We used to freak off when we were so in love. There's no questions asked. It felt right. Like it literally made sense for the next step in our sex life together. I get nervous that I'm just becoming the girlfriend that you get your fantasies off with, and that's it." So was it consensual? It's almost like she's saying, I like doing this, but I want to be more than just your fantasy girl. What is it? Is it coercion? Is she saying, I'm always ready to freak off, LOL, because she was coerced? Or was this consensual and the relationship went sour and here we are? It's a tough one. Cassie also testified that Sean Combs was heavy into opiates, and the defense is trying to show that's what caused these problems. Again, you choose the drugs, you choose the consequences. With addiction, are they choosing the drugs? These are, I could argue with myself all day about this. These are complicated issues. This jury has some stuff to think about. How does that fit into the sex trafficking? Because they're saying that he coerced her and forced her into this, but you're saying it's not him, it's the drugs. I need to understand what is going on here, because Sean Combs would say to Ventura that I need to recover. I'm an addict. So was he choosing the drugs? This is a complicated. Now, also the defense tried to link Ventura's accusation of rape in 2018 to a potential bipolar diagnosis. No, a potential diagnosis. That's what you got? No, I'm not buying it. So those are some of the highlights from the testimony with Cassie. Now, as far as some other highlights, victim 3, they call her Gina. She dated Sean Combs at the same time that Cassie did, and their romance overlap. And the defense is going to try to use this to say that Cassie is a jealous girlfriend. But why isn't Gina testifying? Somebody might say she doesn't want the public spotlight, and even if we don't allow cameras in the courtroom, you can read about it later. But she gave a tell-all interview to YouTube personality Tasha K back in 2019. So she went on camera talking about this. So what is it? Is she questioning her story? Is she questioning what happened? We don't know. And apparently she was subpoenaed to testify, but prosecutors said a few weeks ago they didn't know if she would make it. This is one of the common issues you have with domestic violence cases. Again, this is not a domestic violence case. Statute of limitations. But in abuse cases, if the victim doesn't show up, a lot of times they can get dropped because you don't have proof. It's not uncommon that she would not want to testify, maybe not reliving that trauma. Fortunately, though, from what I'm reading, she is not a necessary witness for the prosecution. None of the charges fully rely on her testimony. She's just corroborating what we're hearing from other witnesses. It's just packing the punch in, which before I started looking into this, when I knew that the witness was gone, I said, well, hopefully this is not a necessary witness. Cassie did testify. The main problem in her and Sean's relationship was Gina. The main problem. It wasn't the blackmail or the fear of beatings. It was that he was seeing someone else. This case, it's hard to wrap your mind around. I think part of that is the charges that were brought. They couldn't bring the assault and battery charge. They couldn't bring rape in federal court. What could they do? What can they do to make him punished for his actions, since it took so long before the allegations came out? And that's what a statute of limitation is. You can't sleep on your rights. You need to assert them. There needs to be certainty with the justice system. You need to know that you don't have to worry about something for the rest of your life. And yet maybe you should have to worry about something for the rest of your life, especially this kind of stuff. But you don't go to prison for something you did 20 years ago when you're a whole different person now, allegedly. But yeah, I think part of what makes this case so difficult to wrap your head around is fitting these facts into these charges. It feels like a stretch to me. It doesn't feel like a stretch that this guy belongs in jail, that he's not a good guy, that he's done horrible things in the past. Horrible, horrific. It's not a stretch to me that he has a non-traditional appetite for sexual acts, that some people would say, why would anybody ever do that consensually? But there are swingers. There are people out there. There are people that are polyamorous. There are people that do consent to these things. But yeah, this is a tough one. This is a tough one. And I think it's because of the charges. I think that's part of the reason it's just so hard to wrap your brain around it, because it feels like they're really stretching this argument to make the facts fit the crime. The jury might find that the facts do fit the crime. The jury might also just be disgusted by this person's behavior and say, I don't really understand it, but let's pick that side. Which, if they have to prove it beyond a reasonable doubt, that's not going to work. If you don't understand their argument, they haven't proven anything. They have to prove it. They have to connect the dots for us. The dots aren't connecting. At times it makes sense. I hate that. I think it's the wrong charges. But we're only 2 weeks into this trial, and this trial could take up to 2 months. So if anything exciting happens in the trial, I'll try to drop it into some episodes. Maybe I should do a little legal corner, but we'll see what happens. We've got a lot more time to wrap everything together. The witnesses aren't necessarily going to tell us the story in order. They're going to wrap up all of this testimony when they do their closing arguments. They're going to tell us, they're going to connect the dots for us during closing arguments. So time will tell. All right, channel surfers. It was just hard to wrap my mind around this one. Let us know what you think. If you were a juror, what would you find? But yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts on it and chat with you about it on Facebook. So come on over to Remote Reality. And thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, leave a 5-star review. Make sure to tell everybody that would like this podcast, that likes true crime and trash TV. Let them know about us so they can find us. We have our loyal 5 listeners. Thank you so much for tuning in. Actually, it's been really exciting. We're seeing on some of our stats that we have listeners worldwide. Shout out to the listeners in Japan, Switzerland, the United Kingdom, Canada, Greece, the Netherlands. It's really cool to see where everyone's listening in from. And if you come over to the Facebook group, let us know where you're from. I promised you a clip of the shenanigans from last night when we were supposed to be recording this podcast. After the theme song, I'll add it to the end of the podcast. It'll be like a little secret track. Just wait a second after the song ends and you're there. Thanks, Channel Surfer. See you soon. Bye.
Remote reality lights the way. See you next week, same time, same place. Channel surfers, let's ride.
I like your stormy nights.
Foggy, baby. You're forward.
Do you want to get my mists?
Thick fog, but I'm sure.
Is it wet? Is it steamy?
I am
Is
soaking
it moist?
I am soaking wet walking through your fog right now.
Do you want a poncho?
I don't need a poncho.
You just like to be wet. You just make it slide, slippity slide.
See, you're quivering. See something. It's not a lip. Do you think we have like that steamy sex operator voice? I feel like it's probably Kermit the Frog here. Wait, who's that? Kermit the Frog here. Kermit the Frog here. Kermit the Frog here. Hey, let's talk to each other like this.
Okay, so you want to touch my fuzzy bear?
Alright. I'll turn you into an animal.
You want to suck on my nipples?
Oh, okay. Which one? Milk you like a four-teated cow.
Let's sport later.
That'd be really nice. Come on, give me a break there.
You want a break? I'll break you. Call you Kit Kat?
Mm-hmm.
Give me a break.
Give me a break.
You like that dark, crispy chocolate.
Hey, take 5.
You're worth $100,000.
See, we're getting nothing but Snickers over here.
They're like the 3 Musketeers over here. Man, slide me out to the Milky Way.
And you might be able to see Mars.
Like your butterfinger in me.
I got 2 Twix for you.
Do you have 2 penises?
We have got one. I mean, you only have one. I got long fingers. Like one in the pink, 2 in the stink. Or 3. Do you think we sound as sexy as we think we sound? I absolutely don't. I feel like we're it'd be so weird if we were in kids' voices right now. I have no
I know what we're in. Just hit the button beside it. Alright.
And now we're on the MC.
with MC.
So now if we talk, it's just our regular voices.
Okay, now I feel weird. I kind of want to be obscured by...
You don't feel weird. I see how you feel.
Do you?
Yep.